More than 180 non-native species have been introduced into the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. You know the most notorious: zebra mussels, the round goby, the sea lamprey. They've caused the disappearance of more than a dozen native fish, and they've cost the region billions of dollars. They get here mostly by stowing in the ballast of St. Lawrence Seaway ships, those huge freighters from around the world that you see on our St. Lawrence River. Canada has a new rule to try to stop new invasive species, but U.S. shippers say it might not even work, and it's actually hurting competition. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. claxtonhepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Thursday, September 26th. First up, Border Patrol officials in the North Country have said they're seeing an unprecedented number of illegal crossings from Canada. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is co-sponsoring a bill that would require the federal government to update its strategy for enforcement at the northern border. Kara Chapman has more.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported almost 190,000 migrant encounters at and between ports of entry on the U.S.-Canada border last fiscal year. The current fiscal year is on track to exceed that. Senator Gillibrand says border communities aren't equipped to handle that level of migration, and that's compounded by the fact that the Department of Homeland Security hasn't updated its northern border strategy since 2018.
We desperately need to make sure local customs and border protection officers have the resources and funding that they need to respond effectively to these changing migrant patterns.
Gillibrand is co-sponsoring the Northern Border Security Enhancement and Review Act. It would require the Department of Homeland Security to analyze the current situation at the northern border and update its strategy regularly.
It might mean more personnel. It might mean different kinds of review. It might mean different kinds of technology. We might need to implement different kind of border tech so we can catch these people who are sneaking across in unsafe conditions.
Gillibrand says there's a flourishing human smuggling industry along the border. She says some people have died trying to cross, like the Indian and Romanian families who drowned in the St. Lawrence River last year. She says, on top of that, guns and drugs are being trafficked.
It's time to give the northern border the attention it deserves and do what needs to be done to keep vulnerable people in our northern border community safe.
The bill has support in both chambers of Congress and on both sides of the aisle. North Country Congresswoman Stefanik and Claudia Tenney have co-sponsored the House version. Gillibrand says she's hopeful the bill will go to the Senate floor for a vote in the lame duck session after the election. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
So invasive species in the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River. Canada recently imposed this new regulation it says is designed to prevent new invasive species from sneaking in. But American shippers say it's ineffective and a way to drive more trade north to Canadian shippers. We go to one spot on the St. Lawrence Seaway's shipping lanes in Michigan for this story by Teresa Holmesy.
The Soo Locks, nestled on the St. Mary's River, are a critical gateway for Great Lakes shipping. Every year, the locks will open and close, allowing passage between Lake Huron and Lake Superior to roughly 7,000 ships. These freighters haul more than 70 million tons of cargo a year, transporting materials like iron ore, limestone, coal, and wheat. A federal study estimates that an unexpected outage of the locks for 2 to 6 weeks could halt 75% of the nation's steel production. And a 6-month outage would result in $1 trillion loss in economic output. As freighters unload their cargo, they're also pumping in water on board. When ships make it to their destination from the Soo Locks, they'll discharge this water while taking on new cargo. This is known as a ballast water exchange, and it's used in shipping to keep bulk carriers balanced. But ballast water can also be a vessel for invasive hitchhikers. An organism like the invasive zebra mussel can be accidentally pumped on board with ballast water and then later dumped in a new location.
I think our latest count is 195 invasive species in the Great Lakes. The vast majority of those are not in all of the Great Lakes.
Rochelle Sturdivant is an aquatic invasive species researcher with Michigan Sea Grant, which supports Great Lakes science. She says most regulations that address invasive species in ballast water are focused on saltwater ships. But for ships that don't leave the Great Lakes, known as Lakers, it's the Wild West. Lakers are not expected to meet federal discharge standards that dictate how clean their ballast water should be.
They aren't going outside the Great Lakes, so they aren't bringing anything into the Great Lakes from outside. That's the justification for them being exempt. Now, they may be moving species around ports within the Great Lakes.
A Canadian rule that's going into effect is hoping to address the gap that leaves Lakers unregulated by requiring these ships to install systems that filter ballast water. Canada says the policy, which covers both Lakers and saltwater vessels, will prevent an estimated 34 invasive species from being introduced and spread in their waters. So far, only 6 American ships must have ballast water management systems in order to access Canadian ports. The remaining 50 Lakers have until 2030 to be up to code. But not everyone is on board with the regulation.
We believe that the U.S. government should be regulating that, not the Canadian government.
Jim Weekly is the president of the Lake Carriers Association, which represents the interests of U.S. commercial shippers. He says the regulation aims to give Canadian industries a monopoly on trade in the Great Lakes. Weekly says it could result in $1 billion loss of business for American carriers over the next 2 decades.
We believe this is a trade issue, not an environmental issue. And the purpose is to take American exports off American ships and put them on Canadian ships.
Weekly says the law oversteps U.S. authorities and gives Canadian ships that are mostly a newer fleet an advantage.
Any American export that's loaded on a U.S. flagged ship has to meet the Canadian requirements, even if we're not discharging ballast water in Canada.
The U.S. Federal Maritime Commission is examining these claims to determine if the law violates international shipping codes. The investigation could lead to countermeasures like limiting or imposing fees on Canadian-flagged vessels at U.S. ports. In a statement, Canada's Transportation Department told WCMU that it stands by the rule as, quote, non-discriminatory and in the public interest. Right now, ballast water technology comes with a high price tag, and it may not be a silver bullet for addressing invasive species in the Great Lakes.
The main argument they have is it's not economically viable at this point to put treatment systems on their ships.
David Reed is a scientist who retired from the NOAA Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab. He says he believes more regulations on Lakers are inevitable in the future. The only issue now, Reed says, is these systems, which often use a chemical or UV treatment to kill organisms in ballast water, are not always consistent in meeting discharge standards. He says the International Maritime Organization has been tracking this.
I am always getting reports that these systems are not working. They're breaking down. They can't treat this water because it's out of the range of conditions that they were certified for.
One report found that on vessels across the globe, the systems may only be meeting standards half the time. On Lakers, Reed says researchers are not confident the systems are capable of handling Great Lakes water and extreme winter temperatures. He points to a clause in the Canadian policy that he calls a, quote, necessary cop-out that accounts for potential shortcomings in ballast technology.
The Canadians basically have said, as long as you use it, and it's an improved system, we're going to assume that the discharge is compliant with our regulations. Otherwise, they would be shutting down the shipping industry half the time.
Back at the Soo Locks, a neat line divides the St. Mary's River on a map of the region and serves as the official border between the U.S. and Canada. The line separates the waters of these two countries in a legal sense, but for invasive species, it's still one connected channel. As Canada moves forward with its policy, researchers are studying how ballast technology can be better tuned to fit Lakers, in a way that can keep the shipping industry afloat, moving grain for farmers and steel for car manufacturing, while also stopping the spread of the next zebra mussel. I'm Teresa Homsey.
You can listen to Story of the Day on your own time by subscribing as a podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to ncpr.org/podcasts. Music today by Eddie Lawrence of Moira and Danny Thomas of Canton. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.